when black smoke covered Ardent's crown. The watchfires on the walls of Ardent Crown had burned every night for nearly 300 years. The city had never fallen. Heretic armies had thrown themselves against its walls until the ditches filled with corpses. Cannons had pounded its towers. Famines had hollowed its people. Plagues had stalked its streets. Still, the gates remained shut. Among the soldiers on the front, a saying had spread: as long as Ardent's crown stands, heaven still remembers us. No one repeated those words after the fires. The first refugee arrived alone. His uniform was scorched black, his rifle bent from heat, and the leather straps across his chest had fused into his coat. The gate guards expected another exhausted survivor from the trenches. Instead, they found a man who did not blink. He handed over his papers. He answered every question correctly. He saluted with perfect discipline. Then, just before passing beneath the gatehouse, he quietly asked the officer beside him, "Hey, do you hear them digging?" The officer frowned. "Digging what, Crusader?" "Well, the sky. They're digging the sky." The refugee smiled. "And they're almost through." He collapsed dead before another word could be spoken. The physicians found no wounds. His body was buried before sunset. That night, the grave diggers vanished. Father Luke served in the chapel of the Last Candle. He spent most evenings comforting widows whose sons would never return from the trenches. On the third night after the refugee arrived, an old woman interrupted confession. She leaned close through the screen. "There is another priest hearing confessions, Father." Luke sighed. "There is no one else assigned here tonight." She began crying. "He sits in your chair after midnight." "What does he say?" "He already knows my sins." Luke checked the chapel himself. It was empty. Yet someone had written fresh words across the altar in wet ash. It read, "I was here first." No one admitted writing them. The letters could not be scrubbed away. Each morning, they returned. Children stopped sleeping. Entire neighborhoods reported identical nightmares. Every child dreamed of standing outside the city walls while something inside begged to be let out. One little girl drew the same picture every day. She sketched Ardent's crown surrounded by flames. Above it floated a black sun with hundreds of staring eyes. When her father burned the drawing, she simply drew another When the priest took her charcoal, she used soot scraped from the earth. When they confined her to a bare room, they found the image scratched into the stone floor with her fingernails. She disappeared before dawn. The locked room was empty. Only black footprints led upward across the ceiling. Captain Roland Beckett was assigned to investigate. A veteran of 20 years on the front, he trusted rifles more than relics. His patrol searched abandoned cellars beneath the eastern quarter. They found dozens of doors, every one open into the same room. A room that should not have existed. Candles burned despite having no wicks. A single wooden chair sat in the center. Upon it rested an old trench helmet, still dripping mud. One private reached for it. Roland shouted for him to stop, but it was too late. The soldier placed the helmet on his head. He immediately stood at attention. Without hesitation, he turned his pistol towards the rest of the squad. Before anyone could react, he whispered, "We held the trench." Then he shot himself. The echo lasted far too long. When Roland removed his helmet, its interior was empty. There had never been space for a human skull. The sickness spread without coughing, without fever, and without blood. People simply began changing. Bakers forgot the names of bread. Blacksmiths hammered invisible iron. Mothers tucked empty blankets into bed and kissed them good night. Men stood in intersections, staring upward until rain pulled around their boots. Every evening, more windows remained dark, not because the families had died, but because they had wandered away. No one knew where. The city's census estimated 12,000 people missing within 2 weeks. No bodies were found. Then the bells rang. Every church, every monastery, every shrine at exactly midnight. No one had touched them. The ropes swung by themselves. The sound rolled over rooftops like distant artillery. People flooded into the streets. They looked towards a cathedral. Something stood atop its highest spire. It resembled a man until lightning flashed. It had 6 arms and no face. By morning, it was gone, but every statue in the city now lacked a face as well. The stone had become perfectly smooth. The High Council ordered an immediate quarantine. The gates slammed shut. Bridges were destroyed. Signals sent to nearby fortresses carried a single phrase: "No entry under any circumstances." Refugees gathering outside begged to be admitted. The guards simply refused. Inside the walls, panic turned into violence. Bread riots erupted. Soldiers executed looters. Priests marched through the smoke-filled streets, carrying relics and censers heavy with blessed incense. Some districts quieted, others became worse. In Weaver's Market, witnesses claimed every mannequin had climbed down from its display and begun following pedestrians. When troops investigated, they found only empty storefronts and footprints, thousands of wooden footprints. Roland Beckett climbed the western wall one gray morning and looked over his city. Smoke rose from dozens of neighborhoods, not from artillery, from families burning their own homes. They feared something had entered with them. An old baker sat beside his burning shop, holding the key in trembling hands. Roland asked him why. The old man answered without looking up. "My wife died 10 years ago." "Yes?" "She made me breakfast this morning." Roland had no reply. On the 19th day, the earth beneath Ardent's crown groaned. The streets split open, not from shells, it came from beneath. Black roots, thicker than siege towers, forced their way through stone. Except they were not roots. They were veins. The city itself began to pulse. Walls flexed. Windows blinked. Entire buildings breathed. People fled screaming. Many never reached the gates. The gates no longer opened. Their iron had fused into solid stone. The city had locked itself shut. Outside the walls, holy artillery established firing lines. General Ox watched through a brass telescope. The skyline writhed. Church towers bent like grass in the wind. Something enormous shifted beneath the cathedral districts. His chaplain quietly removed his spectacles. There are still innocents inside. Ox nodded. "I know." The chaplain whispered the words no commander wished to hear. "If they escape, Commander." The general lowered his telescope. "I know, Chaplain." The order arrived at sunrise, not from the battlefield, from the highest authority remaining in the holy dominions. One sentence: purify the city. The artillery crews read it in silence. No cheers followed. Many of the gunners had wives, brothers, or children inside those walls. Still, they loaded the shells. The first round flew, then another, then hundreds. Incendiary bombardment covered the skyline. Holy oil burst across rooftops. Fire climbed cathedral spires. District after district vanished beneath roaring orange light. People could be seen on the walls. Some begged, some prayed, and some simply watched the inferno consume them. The city screamed. Not the people, the stone, every brick, tower, and street screamed. A single howl rose above the bombardment, so loud that horses collapsed and men clutched bleeding ears. From within the flames, impossible silhouettes moved. Some crawled on limbs that were too many. Some walked upright while carrying entire houses upon their backs. Others looked perfectly human until they cast shadows in the wrong direction. The bombardment intensified. The firestorms merged. For 6 days, Ardent's crown burned. The smoke climbed so high that soldiers later claimed it blotted out the sun itself. Ash drifted across the trenches like black snow. When it settled on helmets and uniforms, veterans brushed it away with shaking hands. It was warm, as though the city had only just died. Months later, scouting parties entered the ruins. Nothing remained except chimneys and broken walls. No bones, no corpses, and no relics. Only endless ash. Captain Roland returned with the first expedition. He walked to the center of the old market square. There, half buried in gray dust, sat a child's drawing. It showed Ardent's crown burning beneath a black sun with hundreds of eyes, exactly as it had before. The paper was completely untouched by fire. He bent to pick it up. Before his fingers reached it, a church bell rang somewhere beneath the ruins. The sound came from underground. Roland looked across the wasteland. The ash was moving. Tiny footprints appeared one after another, as though invisible children were walking through it. They all led towards the heart of the dead city. And beneath the blackened earth, something knocked. And once it knocked, it patiently waited for someone to answer.